Hey guys, Ryan Reiffert here again. Today is round two of would you take legal advice from a random person about whom you know nothing, who may or may not be an attorney, or may not have gotten the advice from a TV show on the internet without having any recourse and without knowing anything else about this person. Round two. Before we get any further, go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe, comment, send a message. Today we're going to have a special guest, Mr. Chris Lee, and we're also going to talk about two pieces of bad legal advice, in part from some feedback that we got previously, which said, hey, don't just talk about one, talk about two. So y'all want more, you get more. Chris Lee is a friend of mine, known him for a long time. He also graduated law school in 2011, same year that I did. Is a partner with the law offices of Leticia Gonzalez, specializes in Social Security and disability law. Without any further ado, let's get into it. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Okay, great. So our first bit of bad legal advice, again, comes from some of the legal advice subreddit. And here we have a guy who says, my mother's vehicle was parked next to a golf course yesterday and was hit with a golf ball, causing damages to the windshield and the roof. She just got a call from somebody at the golf course saying that they are not responsible for any of the damages. And then among all of the other comments, you have one commenter who has been upvoted 196 times by various people. I don't know who's upvoting that. I don't imagine there's 196 attorneys on that forum. But this guy says, IANAL, which is, I believe, an acronym for I am not a lawyer, which kind of should be your first clue here. But he says, I'm not a lawyer, but there is such a thing as an assumed risk. I'm going to play the devil's advocate here. If I were the golfer in question, I would say that the damage was not intentional, and also that your mother knew by parking so close to a golf course that there was a chance that a golf ball could hit and damage her vehicle. That this has never happened before is just a matter of chance luck and does not mean that it damage from a golf ball would never happen ever. I would therefore argue that she knowingly took a risk by parking close to the course and that she is therefore responsible for her car's damages. If I were your mother, I would I guess I would file a claim, he meant, with my insurance company and have their lawyers deal with the situation. This does not seem to be a DIY, do it yourself, given that your mother knowingly or unknowingly assumed the risk of damage by parking where she did. Good luck. So when I read this, it took me all the way back to my first year torts class in law school, and the cases about assumption of the risk, which the one that sticks out to me was the case by Benjamin Cardozo wrote the opinion in Murphy versus Steeplechase, which had to do with this amusement park, right? That had a belt that was moving very fast back and forth, and it would stop and start randomly. And someone got on this amusement park ride and ended up hurting. I think they broke their knee or broke their leg or something like that. And Justice Cardozo said, look, it's very obvious that you were participating in something that was sort of dangerous, and you assumed the risk, which to me, parking on a public street is not really the same as voluntarily going into an amusement park ride, right?
Right.
It's very much a different situation.
Yeah, I agree with that. I know that with the assumption of risk, from my understanding, there's kind of two elements. The first element is that you knew that there was a risk, and then number two, that you voluntarily undertook that risk, right? And so the example that I remember from law school is going to like a ball game, maybe a baseball game, a basketball game, maybe a ball gets hit out of the park, or a home run, and you're trying to catch it, but it hits you in the head. You kind of assume that risk because you knew of this risk. You knew that there's a potential that these ball players would be able to hit the ball, hit a home run. And then you voluntarily assume that risk by potentially getting hit, in the head with that ball,
Right.
And so
you went into the premises, which goes to the other part of this. When you walk into the ball game, to use your example, right? You're when you pass that gate, like, hey, there's stuff flying around here. That's not really the same as a public street, which kind of leads to the other part, which is this from what I remember and from what I understand about assumption of risk. A lot of times this is meant as a defense to premises liability, right? which is if I come on your property, on your store, on your real estate, whatever, and I injure myself because of a dangerous condition, the owner can be liable for that. But here, there's no premises liability because she was parked on a public street. So it's not,
Sure.
if she had gone like onto the green on the golf course, like maybe that's a different situation, right? Like that's probably assumption of the risk. But
Right.
she's not even on the premises.
Right. One of the things that popped in my head right now is, what if you were to buy a house on a golf course, right? And you're out there in your backyard, you're mowing the lawn, someone hits a golf ball and knocks you in the head, right? I guess you knew that there was a potential risk, but did you voluntarily undertook that danger, I guess?
By standing in your own backyard, right? Like that's a little bit, that seems like a stretch to me.
Right. Yeah. And the other thing I think I know of it is that, doesn't it have to be a foreseeable danger? Like you have to it happening, because I think I had read somewhere where, for example, if you're rock climbing and you fall, well, you knew that, that's potential risk by rock climbing. But let's say you're rock climbing and there was a vehicle that veered off the road and ends up hitting you, then that's not a foreseeable risk. So I don't know.
That's not the type of risk that you were assuming.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. And so perhaps at a, if you've ever been to like a driving range or like Top Golf or whatever, they have those like huge nets that go like, I don't know, whatever, 100, 200 feet up. They're these gigantic nets. If you're parked like, down the green from a golf course, they don't have those, which I suppose would, at least if I were there, I would think, well, hey, that's, they don't have a net, so maybe I'm okay.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the case law I had looked up not too long ago was a lady who was essentially, I think, rollerblading down like a residential street, and I guess she ended up tripping and falling over a C curb is what they called it, and she ended up suing the homeowners. They took it to Court of Appeals, and she actually won. And it says here, if I can read it, it says that the Court of Appeals held that there was no assumption of risk because the rollerblader had never rollerbladed on this particular street before. And then number two had never encountered this kind of curb in her rollerblading experience. And it says, because this particular person had never encountered this particular hazard before, she could not have assumed the risk that she was not aware of. So, I can see arguments on both sides. I can see why the assumption of risk defense was raised. I can see, the plaintiff's attorney side to this. But yeah, I think with assumption of risk, it's a lot of kind of gray areas. I think it can be argued either way.
Right. Right. I think in this situation, you might be more productive to look at the particular golfer that hit that ball, right? That might be the better avenue to go. Although, good luck finding that person, right? Unless you storm out on the golf course immediately after you see the ball being hit and go find that person and drag him to court, right?
Right.
You're not going to go back into the records of the golf course and say, who was playing golf between, 2:00 and 3:30, and let's go subpoena all of them. That's just not going to happen.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we have one more here that's that one is maybe a borderline inclusion in bad legal advice. I think this next one is very clearly terrible legal advice, to the point of being actively counterproductive. So this one is a guy, and it says, what happens when you ask, and /r/ is the Reddit lingo for one of these subforms. So what happens when you ask /r ex-Mormon for legal advice? This is 4 months ago, OP, and that meaning original poster, the guy who posted the first thing, OP asked an R ex-Mormon for a recommendation on a family attorney as he was going through a divorce. Rather than offering an attorney recommendation, one of the bright legal minds at R ex-Mormon offered a different tactic. And this person said, you don't have to hire the best or most expensive attorney. You need to consult with the top family attorneys in town. The lawyer cannot represent your ex-to-be if you've discussed your marriage with them. It's a conflict of interest. Read up on it. There are a few tricks you can pull to help even the playing fields. Then this person says correctly, this is phenomenally stupid advice for a variety of reasons. There couldn't be a chance that anyone with a brain would follow this advice, could there? Well, look who strolled into our legal advice today, our OP from 4 months ago. I'm sure that brilliant legal strategy has gone swimmingly. How's it going, OP? Based on the advice I got, I spent the next few weeks talking with like 30 divorce attorneys in town so that my wife and her dad would not be able to hire one. I never hired an attorney myself because I could not afford one, but my wife found one anyway. Apparently they found out what I did, probably because it was so hard for her to get an attorney. And today I just got hit with a motion for attorney fees saying that what I did was abusive process, an attempt to deprive and interfere with justice, bad faith, and a bunch of other stuff. And that I have to pay part of her attorney fees because I made it more expensive for her. Moral of the story, don't take legal advice from strangers on the internet, let alone r/ex-Mormon. So there's a lot to unpack in this one.
Yeah. The thing is, I was thinking right now is that I don't think it's illegal what he did, correct? It's definitely, shady in my opinion, but I don't think that it's illegal that he did that. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, I don't think it's illegal. If you were an attorney and recommended that your client do that, you would almost certainly face sanctions from the bar. It's very clearly unethical, right?
Yeah.
And it's very clearly shady. And I don't know what happened with this, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if he did end up having to pay her legal fees for doing something like this. But illegal, no, I agree. It's not illegal. He's not going to go to jail for it.
Right. And there was a celebrity, I think, who tried doing this. I think it was Heidi Klum.
Yes.
But I think that from what I had read, she had gone to top LA attorneys to try to pull the same tactic.
Right.
I don't know. I'm not sure what happened with that, but I know I've seen a lot of situations where this has come up where these husbands or wives are just trying to go around town, talking to top attorneys to conflict out those attorneys. I know here in San Antonio, we just have so many attorneys. So the likelihood of them going to every single family lawyer, I think it'll be tough. Maybe if you're in a smaller town, maybe there's 5-10 main, family lawyers out there, it can probably be done. But in a big city like San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, I don't know how successful they can really be with that,
And the extent to the number of attorneys that you would have to talk to be successful with that gives all the evidence that you would need for the others. Like, I think this guy said he talked to 30, right? I mean, if you have a list of 30 attorneys who are all conflicted and you show that to the judge, right? Like you're getting some kind of sanctions, right?
Sure.
That's, and yes, to your point, I recall when this happened with Heidi Klum. I think that was when she was divorcing Seal. And she was interviewing all these different attorneys, and it's not clear whether it was really an interview or she was trying to conflict them or blah, blah, blah. But this happens from time to time. And, in a big city, kind of, if you try this, you're taking your chances, right? So the other thing that I thought was interesting here is this probably ends up being a counterproductive strategy for this guy, right? Because having competent counsel on the other side, and like everybody has this idea of like, oh man, they got a really good divorce attorney, which means I'm going to get screwed and blah 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 blah. Well, that's not true, right? What determines whether you're going to get screwed or not is the facts of the case. And a good attorney, whether it be a corporate attorney, whether it be Social Security, whether it be divorce, whatever, a competent attorney is going to be able to resolve your case with, keeping the legal fees and keeping the kind of extraneous nonsense to a minimum, right? Mm-hmm. That if I'm getting a divorce, I want a good attorney on the other side, right? Like I want someone who's going to, talk some sense into my soon-to-be ex-spouse and say, hey, look, let's not go scorched earth, right? Let's not spend $1 million on legal fees. Like, this is what the issue is. This is what's going to happen. Like, let's figure this out without starting a complete war. So, I mean, I think on top of being highly unethical to conflict everyone out,
Right.
it's just bad strategy. It's just not you're going to end up hurting yourself.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think in a situation like this, from what I've, read, it appears that they recommend that in order to prevent this from happening, you want to get an attorney right away, so in order to prevent your spouse from trying this tactic, you should go out and get an attorney immediately, because in a situation like, I guess, Heidi Klum's, where Seal might have not had the opportunity to find good counsel in his area, now he's having to seek counsel outside the city, right? And now you're spending more money, and this situation can happen where, if you're having to pay an attorney outside the city or, wherever it may be, that attorney's going to charge for travel time to go to hearings and stuff like that. And so in a situation like this, like you said, it's counterintuitive, because now they're going after you to pay the attorney's fees, because you use this. So no, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. So there's one other thing here that on this topic that I think we would be remiss if we didn't discuss, which is this from what I can see, kind of the genesis of this advice, right, really came from an episode of The Sopranos.
Okay.
Where Tony Soprano does this and conflicts out a bunch of divorce attorneys because his wife Carmela, I believe her name is divorcing him, and so he goes and talks to, I don't know, 8 or 10 attorneys or something like that, and she has a conversation with one of them and is like, well, hey, what did my husband discuss with you? And he's like, well, I can't say, but you can probably figure out that strategy for yourself. And then you see like this light bulb moment. She's like, oh, he's conflicted out all these people, and he ends up recommending someone, like everything gets resolved. But that, like a lot of other kind of television drama and movie drama and so forth, just because you see something on TV that doesn't mean it's going to actually work as a legal strategy, right?
Right.
This is created for purposes of drama. So what you have here is a scene from a TV show that some person on a subreddit then saw and thought, hey, that's really clever, and then recommended it to someone else on Reddit who actually went out and did it, which is all kinds of amazing. But I mean, to me, really highlights the danger of, if you're getting advice from someone on the internet, you have no idea who this person is, right?
Right.
They could be a lawyer, they could not be a lawyer, they could be a police officer, they could be just some dude who saw an episode of The Sopranos and thought something was clever, right?
Yeah.
Who are these people? Who knows? It's all anonymous based on just
True.
some username. You don't know whether these people are right, wrong, crazy, schizophrenic, psychotic, whatever. You have no idea who they are.
True. Yeah, I mean, it's like we attorneys always say, it's always best to seek legal counsel, right? Always talk to an attorney. Don't take advice from the internet, because like you said, you don't know who you're speaking to unless you know that person. Maybe you have a friend that's on Facebook that comments on one of your posts, and that person is an attorney and they're a family law attorney, for example. Then at that point, you can probably take their advice and run with it. But like you said, I mean, you don't know who are on these forums. You don't know who's posting. You don't know if they're an attorney or not attorney. And so you should never take legal advice from, any of these Reddit posts. One of the things that also came up to my mind in a situation like this is, how much information needs to be shared in these consultations for there to be a conflict, because sometimes when I meet with my clients, or not clients, but potential clients, sometimes I know within the first 5, maybe no more than 10 minutes, if this is a case I can help them out with, and I identify the issues quickly, and we don't go into much detail, and so, I guess there has to be a determination as to how substantive the information was being discussed at the initial consultation as well, because if it was a quick meet, a couple minutes, then you leave that office, is there enough there to conflict out that attorney, on that case?
Right. No, that's a really good point. I mean, I know there are a couple of ethics rules and a couple of opinions that are on point for this. That I am relatively familiar with, and I've had to go back and consult them a couple of times. But you're exactly right. If the phone rings, I pick it up, and somebody says, hey, I have a big old personal injury lawsuit. Well, I don't do that, right? I don't need to know what happened, what's your name, what are the details of it, who are you going after, blah, blah, blah. I just don't do that, right? So
Yeah.
I know that that's not a case that I'm going to be able to take, and I don't think that that is going to give rise to an attorney-client relationship with a
Right.
potential, I mean, again, depending, if they blurt out a whole bunch of stuff and give you a whole bunch of information that you didn't ask for, but like, if all you know is this is a person who called me and I don't know their name and they said, I have a personal injury matter, I'd be very surprised if that gave rise to any kind of attorney-client relationship.
Yeah, I
You
agree.
have to get a little bit further down the road of actually sharing things and having a more in-depth consultation, which goes back to our original point of in order for this strategy to work, of conflicting out every attorney in town, you would have to do that, right? You would have to share enough detail about your case with 30 different attorneys that
Yeah.
in order to conflict them out. So it shows the intent, right? It shows that that's what you were trying to do. You weren't just like talking to someone to see like, hey, do I like this attorney? Am I comfortable with them? Is this someone who seems intelligent? They know what they're doing. You like intentionally gave details of your case for the express purpose of conflicting this person out.
Yeah. The other issue I think arises too is, divorces, they can last a while. I've seen a lot of cases where a spouse will file for divorce and that case just sits there, for months, years, nothing ever happens. Maybe they don't go through with it. Maybe they don't have the funds to complete the divorce. Maybe they reconsider, whatever it may be. And so, I know attorneys' offices, when they meet with a potential client, they're supposed to always document their name, phone number, typically address, and just facts about what the conversation was about, right?
Right.
That's pretty typical of an intake meeting when you meet with the potential intake or new client. Now, what happens in a scenario where 6 months goes by, right? Let's say a husband comes and sees an attorney, John Smith, in January of 2021. Discusses his case at length, and then leaves, doesn't hire that attorney. 6 months goes by, and then now the wife comes in wanting to hire that attorney. I would think that attorney may have already forgotten about the conversation that happened 6 months ago,
Right.
And so I know that attorneys are supposed to document everything, but I can see a scenario happening where that attorney forgot about that, talking to the husband and signing up the wife and representing. And so I can see that potentially rising because, we talk to clients every single day. Some, offices may talk to more clients on a daily basis. And, from January to 6 months later, that attorney could have easily talked to hundreds of other, new clients potentially.
Right.
That poses a problem too, is how's an attorney going to remember, even the facts of what happened, or remember that wife is there for that same case.
Right. Which, to kind of put a bow on that, I think goes to, for attorneys, goes to the importance of that record keeping and the importance of that conflict management system, right? Of keeping those records of like, hey, here's enter the phone number in your whatever client management system you use, whatever matter management, cloud-based, pen and paper, whatever it may be, keeping that phone number, like, keeping that, speak of the devil, keeping that phone number, keeping that client name, right? But the other point to make off of what you just said, which I think is another interesting one, which is these conflicts are waivable, right? That, if let's say that, I did speak to this attorney, or, my wife and I went to an attorney together, and, with the original idea of like, hey, you're going to represent both, which is always a bad idea. But, let's say you do that and then decide later, no, we're each going to get our own attorney. Well, you can waive that conflict, right? And it has to be in writing and informed and blah, 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 and various other things. But, these, just because you spoke to an attorney way back in the day is not the absolute kiss of death for all time. If the other party consents to it, many of these conflicts are waivable. Not all, right? There's certain conflicts that you cannot waive under the ethics rules, but many of these conflicts are waivable.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, I did read that as well. that it is waivable, and there may be situations where there's even an implied waiver. So, for example, in that scenario that I had just given, let's assume that the wife ends up hiring that attorney, and then the husband doesn't do anything about it. Doesn't file any type of disqualification of opposing counsel motion or anything like that. Then he essentially would impliedly waive his right. Assuming that litigation proceeds and he doesn't do anything about it, then
Right.
he's to have waived his right. So
Right. Exactly. Okay. Well, so I think we're getting close to the time mark here, but again, Chris, thanks very much for coming on. And what's your takeaway here for anyone who's watching this and kind of wondering about what we've talked about?
Yeah, of course. You never want to take legal advice from Reddit, from any type of forum, unless it's potentially an attorney that's responding to you, right? You always want to seek legal counsel. I mean, there's many attorneys out there nowadays. Most attorneys now are offering free consultations, so you can easily call your local attorney, talk to them. Most attorneys will spend maybe 15 to 30 minutes, giving you their legal advice. That's always the best way. I know sometimes people want to get online and vent and, try to get advice from other people, but, the people that are responding, we don't know if they're attorneys, we don't know, what background they have. So you always want to seek out legal counsel whenever you can.
Right. I think that's exactly correct. And, to your point of seeking out legal counsel rather than an anonymous person on the internet, if a real attorney had given this advice of like, hey, go conflict out everybody in town, not only would that attorney be sanctioned, but the original poster here who had followed that advice, well, the attorney is probably on the hook to go back and fix this problem, right? If you give someone that bad of legal advice, right, like you're the one who's going to go fix it. So,
Yeah.
If good luck finding the person who originally, made this post, you're not going to get them to go fix it. So that's, again, I completely agree with everything that you said. And that's the value of knowing who your attorney is, and they're located here, and I know they stand behind their advice.
Yep, I agree.
All right. Well, thanks again for coming on, Chris. Really appreciate it. So that's it for today. I really encourage you guys to check out Chris's website. It's at christopherleelaw.com. That's ChristopherLeelaw.com. That's ChristopherLeelaw.com. He's a good guy, good attorney. Does a lot of San Antonio Social Security disability and injury cases. And if you ever have anything in that vein, I strongly encourage you to give him a call. And as always, my website is at ryanreiffert.com, where you can find us at social media, Law Reiffert. Again, if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and subscribe, like, comment. If there's something else that you want to see, go ahead and send us a message. We are listening. Thank you guys again for tuning in, and take care.